Before we get to the episode, exciting news. I have a new podcast, a second podcast. I am the host and producer of the Strandcast, the official podcast for Strand Bookstore in New York City at 12th and Broadway, the coolest independent bookstore. And now there's a podcast every other week featuring long-form conversations with authors from different genres. The Strandcast is available on iTunes and Stitcher. Just search for the Strandcast. Links will be in the show notes, of course, and make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And now for the show. Hello there, and welcome to a new episode of Talk Music Talk with Boys. I am Boys. This is my podcast. Talk Music Talk is a weekly music interview podcast where I have long-form conversations with people connected to music from different genres and different backgrounds, established and emerging music therapists, music journalists, singers, songwriters, and on this episode, a music photographer, music and other things, Glen E. Friedman. If you don't know the name, you definitely know some of his famous images. He shot the album covers for the Beastie Boys. Check Your Head. He also did the album cover for Public Enemies. It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. In 2019, he has 3 books out. 2 of them are expanded reissues of classics. DogTown, The Legend of the Z-Boys, which is on the skateboarding culture of West LA. He also has Keep Your Eyes Open, featuring photography of Fugazi. Both of those are out on Akashic Books, and his most recent title is Together Forever on Reissues Books. It is a collection of photos of the Beastie Boys and Run-DMC. In this conversation, we talk about those 3 books. We talk about his process in selecting photos, the design aspect, the periods that the photos were taken in. Also, we talk about some of his other books like The Monograph, My Rules, and Recognize. We talk about how he feels looking back at his work. Also, the political statement that he looks to make with his work. It was a pleasure meeting and talking to Glen. A special thanks to Akashic Books, Johnny Temple, and also Susanna Lawrence for connecting me with him and letting this interview happen. I hope you enjoyed. It was a great time. Here it is, without further ado, my conversation with Glen E. Friedman. Enjoy. So you got the 3 books out this year. It's Together Forever.
That's the new one.
Yeah, that's the new one.
And DogTown, The Legend of the Z-Boys, and
expanded.
And keep Your Eyes Open. The Fugazi photographs. Mm-hmm. Both of those are republished, expanded editions. And the DogTown one, I have to say, is super expanded. I mean, it's a new size. It's a new cover. Yeah. There's a lot of the same insides, but we redesigned all the pages to look more like the original Skateboarder magazine articles. I worked with the designer at Akashic, Rob, and we did hundreds of hours on that book. That had a real overhaul. But I mean, most of it is the same content, but there's about 20 or 30 new pictures, some more words from Craig Stecyk, and just a lot of redesigned stuff. A lot of the captions have been lengthened. We got more information about some of the spots, and we just added that to the book. Why not? And so that's good. And then the Fugazi book, of course, Keep Your Eyes Open, has a new added interview with recently done with Ian Mackay and myself, and that's kind of fun. And it's about 8 pages, I think, added to the back there, maybe a little longer. And some of the photos that were in some of my old books are scattered about in that interview. That books that aren't published in print anymore, we just threw those in there. And then of course the brand new book, or the pretty recently published brand new book, Together Forever, is all the best of my Beastie Boys and Run-DMC photographs all in one book. And it's the same size as Keep Your Eyes Open. I wanted them to sit on the shelf next to each other and maybe begin a series. Who knows? But yeah. And that was put out by Reissues, and that's a really fun book. That's a pretty good book. And yeah.
Yeah. So was that a happy accident, or was this all intentional that all 3 books would come out?
No, it just happened.
Year?
I mean, the Fugazi book and the DogTown book were both out of print for a couple of years now, And the book publishing business independently has become very, very difficult, as most independent businesses have over the last, decade. So they were out of print for a couple of years. That's why I went to Rizzoli with My Rules book, thanks to the introduction from Shepard Fairey to his editor over there. And but to keep these old books in print was really was a great thing. And we knew Johnny Temple from Akashic, because we helped him get a lot of the early information he needed when he was setting up his book company from the old book company that I used to have. And so originally he was just going to put out the Fugazi book because that's what he has a close connection to, being a DC guy and playing in bands and stuff. He definitely wanted to keep that in print. And then, we were all just busy, and then he just hit me back eventually, and it was like a year later, 6 months later, says, hey, I think we could do it now. Let's do this. And I said, cool, great. And they said, and you know what? We had a meeting. I think we want to do Dogtown too. And I was like really surprised by that because they just didn't have, necessarily know the audience for that themselves other than, old skateboarders and people interested in skateboard culture. But something clicked for them and they finally got it. And again, to offer me to do an overhaul of either of the books was really exciting and fun for me. The Dogtown book was originally designed 20 years ago and sold tens of thousands of copies. It's very popular. It's kind of like a Bible for skateboarding. But to, update it and expand it was really fun for me. I love making books. Making books is like a puzzle. Some people like crossword puzzles or, jigsaw puzzles or whatever. I mean, that's what a book is to me. It's like, I just love it. It's just so satisfying for me, working in magazines since I was 14 years old, seeing how things are put together and designed and learning from some of the best. I love to do it on my own when I was in control of the whole thing. And I actually have designed all my own books until very recently. And even the My Rules book that was co-designed with Shepard Fairey and his crew of guys. The Dogtown book and the Fugazi book, of course, were redesigned with Sohrab, but they were based on what I had originally done. But then the Together Forever book is the first book I didn't design for the most part by myself. They actually hired a designer to do that. But I was over his shoulder, breathing down his neck the whole time pretty hard on which photos to go where and how big to make them and stuff like that. And it was a collaborative effort. But the designer, Mathieu Beton, he's really talented guy, really super nice guy, and it was really fun to work with him. I mean, he was just great. And it was fun to not have to do it all by myself, And so anyways, so the two books got republished by Akashic, and that was really great. And that's the way the timing went. The Together Forever Beastie Boys Run-DMC photographs was supposed to come out a year ago, but they had the Beastie Boys themselves asked me to postpone it about 6 months just due to their book coming out. And since I had their blessing to do the book and Run-DMC's blessing, I said, of course, I don't mind. I'm not in any rush. In fact, I'm just doing this book just for the hell of it because Rizzoli asked me to do a book and, on the Beastie Boys. And I just said, well, I don't want to do one on just them. That was just kind of too obvious. But to bring their inspiration, Run-DMC, and so many other people's inspiration, Run-DMC, into the fold, and they all did work together, and they did go on that tour together, and they were all friends. To put the book together with all of them that was the goal in the end, and after the original proposal, and so that's why I was happy to make that new puzzle.
So, what is your process when you have these three books and you're looking back over your work? And like for the reissues, like you're expanding them, like what are you looking for?
Well, in a reissue, I mean, if a book's been out of print, I just want to get it back in print. The publishers are usually the ones that ask you, well, could you add something to it so it's special, and maybe people will, take another look at it. Maybe people will review it. In cases like the Fugazi book, I think that was a pretty perfect book to begin with. So I didn't touch it much, to be honest. It didn't need to be fucked with. It's a good book. It's a great book. And it was printed originally in 2007, which is not that long ago in my, archive of books. But we did add that interview, which was fun and which they wanted to do over at Akashic, and they did the interview with us. It was really a discussion, and it was fun, and we're giving each other a hard time and having, Ian and I, and it talks about the book and a little bit about the history. The Dogtown book, like I think I said, is over the last 20 years since I first put it together, more photos have just fallen into my lap that I've lost and refound, right? And more information about some of the images has been uncovered. I didn't remember the location when I made the book, and now I know the location, or I know the date better, or I know, something about it more. So I expanded the caption. Or on some photos that were full page photos, I found another photo from the same day. Well, why not just make a little inset of it? It's not a great shot, but it just shows, another shot of Jay Adams on the same bank, doing a different trick, or a picture of Tony Alva. I had a picture of him jumping over the standing there with his trophy after he did the barrel jump, the world record in 1977 at a big sports arena. And I had come across a proof sheet, and I have a picture of him actually jumping over the barrels, not just with his trophy. Now, it's not a very incredible photograph by any means, but as an inset, it's nice. It gives more context. And I think that's the beauty of doing these things. You just, especially the Dogtown book, you get to give it more context of, that's really what the update did. And again, with the design of that book, too, making it look more like the first half of the book, a lot of people don't realize is Craig Stecyk's work, his writing and his photographs. And they were incredibly inspiring to me and inspirational to, millions of kids around the planet who got into skateboarding in the 70s. And I love the way they were in the original book, but, the advancement of technology and being able to find, fonts and different design things these days is much easier than it was 20 years ago when I was designing it at home by myself. With Sohrab, I was able to, he was able to find a lot of those original fonts, and we did some things to just make it look cool and fun and more 70s. And some of the pictures, we were able to make look a little bit clearer. A lot of the photos, Stecyk's photos, we don't have the originals. We had to scan them out of the magazines. Not a lot, but at least, a dozen or so out of 100 were just scans out of the magazines. And, we were able to make some of them look a little better this time around, again, because the technology helped and stuff like that. And in my section, again, there's just photos that just, fell out of files that I didn't realize were there, or someone had them in Z-Flex skateboards had them in a shoebox somewhere, and I took them. They had my film. I don't know what the hell they were doing with my film, but, that's how it goes. I mean, you're a 15-year-old kid, and when you shoot the images back then, it's like, they don't really seem like they're going to be worth anything a month later. You just did it for the moment. You're just trying to show what was going on that day, and you didn't think it's going to be worth anything later on. But, they really all tell stories, right, years later. And some of them were some great photographs. So to be able to intersperse them, took out some photos, added some pages, just telling more of the story. It was really fun.
What was the story you wanted to tell?
That's a good question. Well, with the Dogtown book, just what was going on there, just the action and the energy of the era, really. And when you have more photographs to help you tell that story, and some of the photographs that hadn't been seen before, it's just showing another side to it, just a little more depth that no one's ever seen. And certainly for the fanatics, even for myself, I am a fanatic myself about it, to see them and to see them in print, is really fun, and it's really exciting. It's just like, oh shit, look at that. Wow. God, look at his style in that. Look at the, what he's doing. Look at his position. Look at the location, and then again to find out, through other people, telling me over the years, where this particular image was made, or that I knew, but I just didn't think it was important 20 years ago to write that it was taken in such and such a place. But now I just tried to put in all the information I can, because people want information, and it's cool to just have it there. It's a book, right? It's a permanent, source of the information. So why not make it all that it can be without making it look ugly? Yeah.
And what was your process for Together Forever? Like, how do you know, did they tell you, this is how many pages it's going to be, and then you have to, work backwards from there?
That's another good question. I kind of dictate most of that. I pick what size I want the book to be. I mean, I can't dictate 100%. I just say, I make requests, this is what I want. Yeah. And since they trust me to some degree, and I've had some success with publishing, and my books look good, and my photos are decent, they give me some, area to play in. Yeah. And, I think I could have used more pages in my Rules book, but they said, no, that's the limit. I was 324 pages or something like that. And it's huge. Yeah, the My Rules book is really my, favorite, it's so fucking big. I mean, it weighs almost 8 pounds. And, I didn't take any advance on that book at all. So it would be priced as reasonably as possible for the consumer, for the kids, for the fans, for people, my age or whatever, whoever wanted to get it. So, there's like a 8 pound, 13-inch wide, 10-inch tall,
it's a beautiful book.
Tome for $55. You can't beat that.
No.
I mean, I think it's up to 60 now, which happened without anyone telling me, but I guess that's just the economy. But, and they embossed it, and they used black foil, and, Rizzoli, doing a book with Rizzoli is like, nothing else. I mean, they like to make beautiful books. They want to make them special, and certainly they have more budgets than when I was self-publishing to do it. That book would, if I was to make that on my own, it would cost me that much just to produce it before it was even, packaged to sell to somebody. It just, and they have, the ability to have things priced lower because they do such massive quantities, of all their books. So, with the embossing, and then like with the Run-DMC Beastie Boys book, Together Forever, you've got, gold foil on the front, back, and spine, and you've got the gold gilding on the edges. Those are all my ideas with the designer because we just want to make it b-boy as fuck. We just want it to be cool of that era, and and I think it worked. It really did, and we were just so psyched when they okayed that. Like we didn't think we'd get it because it costs a lot to make those, but my books are all, it's really important to me that they're priced, within range of people being able to buy them, and somewhat reasonably. I mean, a $45 book with gold gilding and 224 pages is, and a lot of beautiful, images on the inside. It's pretty great. And then, people go to their local bookstores and get it on sale, or if they're not able to afford that, they could always go online and get it, and it's goodness knows it's so much cheaper there, and just so it's all good, man. I just want people who want to have it be able to get it.
And what do you feel the difference between is a picture that goes in the book and one that isn't going to go in the book?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, in My Rules, it's the best of the best, right? My Rules was a book that was all the best from Fuck You Heroes and Fuck You 2, because those books have both been out of print for a while, plus about 30% more images and essays from 22 of the subjects, right? So, that's a really tough edit because you got to get the best, coolest, most inspiring stuff to me, the stuff that is just really on the, the extreme great quality. With the Beastie Boys Run-DMC Together Forever book, it's kind of like, we just want to we don't need to have the absolute best. We don't have to have the most serious, the most bold. We just want to show the whole story, what happened throughout the entire time, So there might be some photos in there that my critical fucking eye, who I'm really particular about what I like to publish, is not, it's not going to pick these photos for the best of book. But in the Run-DMC Beastie Boys book, it's like, let's just show the whole story of the day, and anything that's decent and good, because I got a lot of decent and good stuff, but there's a little less amazing, perfect stuff, right? Okay. So the amazing, perfect stuff goes into the compendium of, My Rules, but the Together Forever is just like, it's just everything, it just shows you the outtakes and stuff like that. And there's not shitty photos in it, there's still good quality stuff because I am very particular, but it's a little, I let down, my guard a little bit and show a little bit more stuff. And, and there's photos like of, Joey's now Reverend Run, smoking the joint and, and Beastie's just jumping around, goofing around, photos that I wouldn't have put in the other books, but they're fucking great photos, and again, it shows a side of the story. And also even, you look at my introduction, it's like 5,000 words, on the captions, I say the location and the date, I leave it at that. If people take time to read, which they should, if they're interested, the introduction just gives you all the context of the photos and tells you what was going on with them, with me when we were taking the images and how we got to that point in time. And I think that's, I've learned through, I hate to admit it, but I learned through, sharing on Instagram with the long extended captions that I often would give over the, last few years since I got on, that people really enjoy that stuff. They really like the backstory and they really like hearing every tidbit. And so, I didn't give every single story. I didn't give every tidbit because it would have been the whole book. But the 12 pages or 8 pages, I don't remember what it is. 5,000 words that I wrote. The editor, when I told her I did it, she's like, she's we already were tight on pages. It's a 224 page book, I think. Together Forever. And here we go. We're going to put 8 or 12 pages for text. And she was like, you already were exploding, and we had to cut out pictures. What are you doing? And I said, well, look, I just wrote this. I was inspired by seeing the Beastie Boys do their live book talks recently and their stories, and by the feedback I've been getting on my stories on Instagram. And after seeing the Beasties that one night over there at Town Hall in New York City, I just went home and just started writing. And in a week I had it done. And and then I thought, well, maybe this is too personal. Maybe it's just too much information.
Yeah.
I don't want to, last thing I want to do is be a braggart, but it was the story. And so I started letting close friends read it and the editor read it and see what they think. Is this worth it? Should we put it in? You tell me, because if you tell me it's whack, I'll just take it out, because I got a lot of personal stuff in there too. And I don't want to look like, some crazy person just trying to, tell my story. It's so much more than their story. It's really how it's all tied together, right? Hence the title, Together Forever. But everyone loved it. Yeah. Everyone, not one person told me anything, and I don't have a bunch of sycophants. I've got people who really, are good critical friends who will tell you the truth. And everybody really loved it a lot. And then the editor loved it too, which because she was being really she was really worried that it was going to take away from the book. And I'm not a writer. And she's like, oh, what the fuck is Glenn doing? And then she read it and she just said she loved every word of it. She said, okay, we need to clean it up a little bit. A couple things missing here and there because I'm not a writer. And she did. And we, fixed the grammar and whatever else we had to do. And it's all in there. Yeah, so, and it's a good, nice little story. It starts off, kind of sweet, and it goes on from there. It starts sweet and ends sweet. It's a. I think if people are interested in that shit, it's good. They'll like it. Yeah. Good.
What is your relationship when you look back at your old work?
You rediscover imagery, and you have your eyes change over time on what looks interesting, and just the passage of time makes you look. Now all of a sudden you might care about what someone's wearing. Not that I do, but you might care that house is no longer here. It's torn down, or the architecture is different, or the people have grown. They are old now. They don't look the same. They're little babies in these photographs. Some of the pictures of Horvitz, in the Together Forever book. And it's like, so things change, they are precious to me. I work really fucking hard. I'm not just a snap shooter. I fucking worked hard to compose these images, took shit from people, and, got in arguments with people, pushing people around to make what I thought were, great compositions, I'm not a documentarian. I'm not a snap shooter. I'm not a fucking capturer. Fuck all that. I'm a photographer and an artist, and I don't mean to, sound all, uppity about it, but it's or pretentious, but, it's serious to me. I took it serious, and the photos might not look that serious to you, but they are to me. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if they don't look that way to you. If they inspire you, that's what's good. That's what it's all about, is inspiring people, making these photographs to show other people, to inspire them to their own greatness, to inspire them and to show them what was going on, the way I was seeing things, the way I perceive things. That's what it's all about, right? So they are precious to me. Putting together the books, when you have, an idea that you want to share with people, it's you put on the glasses for that idea. You kind of, okay, it's going to be Run-DMC and the Beastie Boys. Together Forever is the title. What fits that? What's going to go in there? What are these, people want to see who would be interested in this title and in this book?
The title came first, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there was, I mean, you have to have a title, I didn't make a whole book and then have a title afterwards. You can't design a cover without the title. But there was another title thrown around, an old, an old nickname that Chuck D made up for the whole Rush Productions Def Jam crew, which were all the bands that were either on Def Jam or managed by Rush Productions, which back then was like every major rapper pretty much there was. You know, there were a few people that weren't, but even some that weren't eventually came there. Not everyone, but you know, you had the Extra Strength Posse is what Chuck D called it. And that was LL Cool J, Run-DMC, Beastie Boys. You know, him and Public Enemy wanted to be a part of that. He wasn't yet. But just the combination of, you know, Run-DMC, Beastie Boys, and LL Cool J, and, you know, other bands that they had like Houdini and stuff like that. You know, it was, you know, and Slick Rick, and, you know, it was just, it went on, and Chuck gave it that nickname. And Rizzoli, publisher, really liked that title too, the Extra Strength Posse. But then I thought, you know, Posse just sounds a little bit dated and a little bit corny, but they really liked it. So it took a little bit of back and forth, but they trusted me and they let me go with the, you know, Together Forever. And, cause yeah, I mean, you know, all my books really have a political statement too. You know, if you look at my books and you're a supporter of the fascist, you know, wannabe dictatorship that's going on now, you don't know, you haven't gotten anything out of my work. You know, you just don't understand it. If you're, you know, a person who, you know, supports hate of any kind, you know, you're not getting it, you know, and you know, and certainly My Rules is a political statement. You read what's in it. Fuck You Heroes is a political statement. The Idealist is a political statement. Recognize is my most extreme art project, is a political statement. Fuck You Too, my third book, was not such a political statement. It was more of a scrapbook, right? But I like to make somewhat of a statement. Together Forever wasn't really thought of in a political way originally, and it really isn't a political book other than the title expresses unity. Together Forever. A white group and a black group, and how they worked together, and how they were friends, and how they inspired each other and worked with each other, you know, to do their own things and in a way make the world a better place, whether by entertaining people or talking about politics. You know, just working together. What the fuck? You know, in this fucking desperate, horrible time that we're trying to go through at the moment, it's like it was appropriate to just use those words, Together Forever.
Did you that come as a retrospectively, or at the time you were taking the photos, are you thinking that about these two groups? One's black, one's white.
Well, I took photos. I only took photos of them together once.
Okay.
The book is not. The book only has like 4 or 5. You know. 5 pages of them together. Okay. It's all the best photographs of both the groups. My individual photos of them. And I don't know where, somewhere in a press release somewhere, people kind of thought that it was just from that tour. Absolutely not. It's not that. The photo on the cover is just a group of them, a photo of them together. If you look at the back cover, they're all separate. And, you know, and throughout the book, they're mostly just Run-DMC photos and Beastie Boys photos. You know, again, only 5 or 6 pages of them actually sitting together on the roof of the old Def Jam Rush Productions building, in fact, or on the stoop right there in front. But they were right there on Elizabeth Street, right here in Manhattan. Yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Where does Recognize fit in? Like, so it doesn't necessarily look like the other work, but where does it fit in for you in your work?
Well, you know, Recognize came about after, you know, it fits in with all my work because all my work, like I said before, is like, you know, I'm very conscious of compositions, and I really made it.
Describe what Recognize is.
Recognize is a book of cloud photographs that I took over a 5-year period from 2000 to 2005. While I was sitting in the back, you know, in coach class in airplanes flying around the country or around the world doing what I do, normal business. I did get on a private plane with someone once, and karma will have it, I didn't get one picture that went in the book from that private plane from one of my high roller friends, which is interesting and kind of cool that it was all really, you know, very organically done. And a lot like my photographs that people notice, my skateboarding and music photographs, I wanted to make something that was very intimate and different than what anyone else could do and show a perspective, an insider's perspective like I do with my work. So how do you do that with a book of clouds? The only cloud book I could ever find anywhere at that time that I made this was the collection by Alfred Stieglitz. And that was pretty minimal. It wasn't, I don't even think it was a whole book. It was a collection. And and I don't do much research, but I just want to make sure this hadn't been done before. And before I went ahead and spent my own money to make this crazy, ridiculous art project, because I was frustrated with the state of photography at that time.
Okay.
At this time, people were like, it was really the era of the emperor's new clothes. And we haven't gotten past it too much, to be honest, where this shitty, pseudo sexy, fake fashion photography with overlit, straight on flash photos started getting popular, and pornography coming into the picture more again, becoming popular. It's like, that's just bullshit. It's really just, it's just fake. It's just, it's just a fraud to me, to think that is good photography. It isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't. It's, you could say that you like it, but it's not good photography, in my opinion. And, I grew up with National Geographic. I grew up with Sports Illustrated, and I grew up with Surfer Magazine. I mean, back in the 60s and 70s when I was looking at these things before I became an artist that used a camera himself, I mean, these are amazing pictures. I was inspired by, the great Renaissance painters.
Yeah.
I'm not really inspired by modern art that much. I find some of it beautiful, but that didn't speak to my sensibility in composing my photographs. Okay? So seeing what was going on in photography at the time, I said, look, I'm going to show people how even a person who's known for shooting skateboarding and punk rock and hip hop artists, usually in intense places, can also shoot pictures of the most ubiquitous, is that the right word? Element on our planet, clouds. Not everyone's seen the ocean. Not everyone's seen a mountain. Everyone has seen a cloud. Yes. I don't think there's any place on earth where you can avoid seeing clouds, right? And so here's the most universal of all subjects to me. And then I only took pictures from the view of the clouds themselves for the most part. I think there's maybe, out of the 60 pages of the book, or 55 pages of the book, I think there's maybe 2 or 3 images that are not taken from within the clouds or at cloud level themselves, in between 15 and 33,000 feet, I learned, is where the best clouds are, right? Okay. And I wanted every picture to look different, and I wanted to show people how I literally was composing on the fly. It is not a play on words. I am flying by. I can't tell the pilot to stop or to slow down. Yeah. It was actually totally exciting, because I'd be going on a transcontinental flight, looking out the window the whole time, just my eyes peeled. Just like I'm some kind of, cocaine addict or something, just eyes open the whole time, just staring at the sky, just waiting for a moment. And I learned over the years that there's more likely clouds in different places. And usually when you're landing, you get great ones in Los Angeles and different places. But, and at 33,000 at the cruising altitude, there's not that many, but you do run into some stuff sometimes. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's there and then it's gone. And it's like, and to make it, you're not just random fucking clouds. It's like, I'm looking through the lens, trying not to get reflections on the glass, using a zoom lens or a wide angle lens, trying not to show the wing of the plane, and all that while making a beautiful photograph. It was real fun for me to do. And it really was, a statement of art to show people with this most basic of subjects, we're beginning at the beginning. Yeah. A cloud. I thought like it really is my photography one course for the world to show people that it's not as simple as you might think by looking at my earlier work, even though it's more beautiful and has a more personality than a lot of other photographers, and character. Because character and composition is what make the beautiful photographs to me, not just a trick in skateboarding and not just a picture of 4 guys standing against a wall, but make art out of it, show some character, But before that, you have to learn how to compose and make beautiful images. And I thought this cloud book is really going to show people that, or it's going to make them think I'm completely fucking crazy and off my rocker, that this guy did this cloud book. But I'm very happy with it. we still have plenty in the warehouse for people to buy. It was, it was just an art project for me to do. I had the money. I just spent all my own money. I printed it up. It's independently published, and and it's there for people who want to see it. And people, most people who own it love it. A couple of people probably bought it and said, "Well, where's Black Flag, or where's Tony Alva, or where's Run-DMC?" But that's not here. But it is the same person that created it, and it comes from the same place. Yeah. And it was revolutionary in its own way. And it really, the title tells you to recognize beauty that's all around us all the time. And you could always have beautiful things. And it was a way to recognize good photography, recognize art, and recognize compositions step by step. No captions in the book. That's just it. They're just pictures of clouds. And there's a couple of essays that, have some political perspective on things, and so that's where that comes from.
Has that always been who you are, to recognize beauty? Like, are you in the moment? How does that work out?
I think my eye is very intense. I think I do. I recognize beauty, and I also recognize ugliness too. I see a lot of ugly things, and I try to fix them. I like order, in as far as compositions are concerned. And I do think that when you share images and you create images of individuals, athletes, musicians, whatever it is, it's scientifically proven that something beautiful pleases people, and it puts them at ease, and it relaxes their mind. So if I could have a picture of Ian MacKaye, screaming into a microphone on the floor of a venue somewhere in the world, and someone could see his personality, and someone could see the balance between the audience and himself, and the parquet floor, and all that, making it look beautiful at the same time as showing the peak moment. You don't have to be a fan of Minor Threat to know that that's a great photograph. And again, people don't all read that. People are like, "Oh, shut the fuck up already. It's just a picture of a band." Good. That's fine. You're entitled to say that. But you know what? I'm not trying to preach the converted. I'm trying to bring in more people to understand what was going on, and to share these stories, and to share these cultures with people, and bring more people into them, to expose them to other ways of thinking, other ways of looking at things, and really, again, might seem a little bit lofty, but to make the world a better place.
Yeah. Do you know this in the moment when you're taking the picture, or is it after the fact you see the pictures developed?
Well, you never know until you get it back that you got it. But I am certainly working my fucking ass off. And you could ask subjects who stand in front of my camera, lift your chin a little this way, turn your head that way, move a little bit to the right, lift your hand up here right. I am absolutely 100% conscious of all that shit, for sure.
Yeah.
And even in the skateboarding days, if you look at the lines in a lot of the photographs, I mean, sometimes you can't predict that, and you just got to get the action. But to make it look great, you have to set yourself up in the right place and have the perfect timing to get the peak moment and the action and the character and the style. And also the location, the background is just as important sometimes. The setting of where it happens. That's why I use wide angle lenses a lot, and I don't use them as a gimmick. I use it to show more of the environment while still being able to be close to the subject.
And for you got the 3 books out. Is this like a closing of a chapter? Like, how do you see this?
Well, I have. It's like. I don't even know how, it's at least 8 or 9 books that I've published, depending on whether you count new editions or, updated books. The Idealist has a 20-year version and a 25-year version. I'm not closing anything.
Yeah.
I don't shoot that much anymore because I'm not inspired that much anymore. But I've still got, a lot of photos, or not that many photos. Still have some photographs in my archive that might see the light of day, that people might get to see. I think that as far as the Run-DMC and Beastie Boys photographs, yes, that book is closed.
Yeah.
DogTown stuff, it's kind of done. I did it. It's time to, I'll never move on completely from it, because it's, skateboarding, DogTown, hip hop, punk rock, it runs through my veins. Yeah. It's me for the rest of my life. And I love that shit. I still love it, But what's happening now, people say, well, why aren't you taking the pictures now? Well, how about, I don't think it looks as photogenic to shoot people who are my age performing. And I think that those young bands should be photographed and portrayed by people their own age, and their peers should shoot them because they have a connection. I think my pictures speak to people in the way they do because of my connection to the subjects. You know, I wasn't a voyeur. I wasn't just, looking to take pictures and document something because it was interesting or exciting. It was my fucking life. Yeah. And it was exciting to me because I was living it. And even though I couldn't skate as good as those guys as time went on at all, I knew, as a skater, I knew what was exciting and what was interesting. When I shoot someone these days, which I did a couple of weeks ago just because I saw some dude I've been wanting to shoot for a couple of years now, and I hadn't shot skating in a long time. And, but it's not my realm anymore. It's like, I want them to do the same shit that I was shooting 40 years ago. Because that's what I like. And to me, that expresses style and aggression and character. The tricks that I see them doing now don't do that for me. So I don't want to shoot that. If someone else finds that exciting, you go fucking shoot that. I'm good with that. I'm okay. You do that. You do your thing, I'll do mine.
Okay. Where's the best place people can check out everything you do online?
Well, I do have the website, www.burningflags.com, Burning Flags with an S. It hasn't been updated in about 5 years. But maybe a little less than that. But there's some good stuff on there. The people can go to my Instagram account, just Glen E. Friedman. And there's some good stuff on there. But, if you really want to see this shit, you got to get the books.
Yeah.
There's nothing like a book. That's for sure. I mean, it's just...
Beautiful object.
It's just a facsimile to see it online. I mean, it's backlit. It's a whole different game. It's like, if you like the shit online, you better go get the book so you could really see how it's meant to be seen.
Yes.
As I say. That's all I say on my Instagram bio. If you like what you see here, go pick up the books and look at it as it's meant to be seen. And I'm not trying to make money and get you to buy a book. I don't care if you steal the book. You can do whatever the fuck you want. You could borrow it from a library. Just get the books. Yeah. That's what you need to do. Because if you're getting inspiration, if you're getting a kick in the ass, the books will really kick your ass open. Because that way you see the whole image, you see how it's really printed and how it was created. You get some of that, certainly, on the internet. And it's good for people who don't want to get in deep, or people afraid, or too, not that interested, or just don't have that deep a thinking process. Then go ahead, just keep looking at it on the internet. That's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, the books is where to do it. And I always try and get people to buy from local good bookstores that support independent publishers. If they rip off independent publishers, don't support them. Fuck it. Go to your online source if you need to. Or if you live in a place where you can't, reach a bookstore that easily. And that's a sad situation these days. But then, yeah, go ahead online and get it as cheap as you can. Yeah. I'm not mad at you, but it would be nice if you can get them from a good local bookstore.
Sounds good, Glen.
And they're almost all available too. I mean, not all of them are in print anymore, but like you said, the 3 that we had this year, 2 of them back in print, and the 1 new book, and then My Rules is still in print, and Recognize is still in print, The Idealist is still in print. There's some stuff out there for people to check out.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah,
Glen, this was great.
Okay, good,
I'm glad we had a chance to do this.
Yeah. My pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Glen E. Friedman. Again, his website is burningflags.com, and also on Instagram at Glen E. Friedman. I have a website, talkmusictalk.com, to stream every single episode and for more podcast information. I am also on social media on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at This Is Boys, and a special request for you, some special requests. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and many other places. Just search for Talk Music Talk with Boys, and please leave a 5-star rating and or review to help grow the Talk Music Talk audience. Also, there is a Talk Music Talk app. It is free wherever you like to get your apps. Again, just search for Talk Music Talk with Boys. And don't forget my other podcast, check that out, the Strandcast, the official podcast of Strand Bookstore, 12th and Broadway in New York City, here in New York City. Link in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, and there will be a next time. This one's for you, Liz.